Good evening. Welcome to Dhammaloka Buddhist Center. My name is Lucky. Let me introduce our visiting monk, Venerable Damita, currently the abbot of Portugala Forest Monastery in Sri Lanka. Venerable's visit to Perth is at the invitation of Retreats WA. With approval from Ajahn Brahm, he is here tonight to speak to our WA supporters. Venerable was a software engineer when he ordained as a student of late Katukurunde Jnanananda Mahathero of Sri Lanka in 2007. He received his higher ordination in 2008. He is an advisor and a frequent speaker at retreats organized by Ajahn Brahm Society, Sri Lanka. Venerable is also the translator to Ajahn Brahm and Ajahn Brahmali's programs and retreats held in Sri Lanka. Venerable is a great supporter of the Anuggahita project, a first of its kind in Sri Lanka, for female Sangha and the lay female community to practice. Here's Venerable Damita to the Dhamma talk now.
Okay, thank you, Nona. For that kind introduction. So I hope you can hear me at the back, so the sound is good. Okay. So welcome everyone once again for our Dhamma talk today. So Lucky already gave a kind introduction. So I'm here at the invitation of Sri Lankan Meditation Retreats, this association. So far I gave a few talks in few places. So today I'm invited here to give a Dhamma talk here at Dhammaloka. So which is an honor to speak where Ajahn Brahm and Bodhinyana Sangha actually speaks. So thank you for being here. So I will start my desana with paying respects to Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. So for today's talk, I was contemplating what should I talk about, and so far I've been giving talks about talking about in general the right view and the importance of the right view. So this particular sutta occurred to me that which can be a nice framework I could possibly weave a Dhamma talk around. So this is called Anuggahita Sutta. This can be found in the Anguttaras. So I thought maybe I'll read it out first. It's just a small sort of a sutta, so I'll read it out first. So this is Anguttara 5's, the 25th sutta. I'm reading the Ajahn Sujato's translation, supported. It's a topic of it. Mendicants, when right view is supported by 5 factors, it has freedom of heart and freedom of wisdom, and its fruit and as its fruit and benefit. What 5? It's when right view is supported by ethics, learning, discussion, serenity, and discernment. When right view is supported by these 5 factors, it has freedom of heart and freedom by wisdom as its fruit and benefit. So this is now, as the sutta suggests, the main point here is that the right view needs some support in order to get us to the nibbana. Now, if the right view is supported by these factors, it will lead to Nibbana. Now, the final goal is explained or mentioned in two terms. Here is the freedom of heart, and the second one is the freedom by wisdom. Now, you have heard these two terms, the Ceto Vimutti and the Panya Vimutti. So these are the terms suggest that the sutta is talking about the final liberation. So the right view, there has to be right view to begin with. So that right view needs to be supported by these other five things. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of a right view, what the suttas say about the right view. Now, teachings like Mahachattārisika Sutta you see in the Majjhima, you see there is this like two divisions of right view. There is this like basic, the term is the Laukika, but I would prefer the term like some sort of like a foundational, like basic right view. And there's this Lokottara, which is the transcendental, which leads to Nibbana, sort of right view. So, if I kind of quickly go through what these two types, so the foundational right view covers particularly, it starts with the dana, which you all do, the generosity, this giving up, this sacrifice. So these things, that are covered in this basic right view. You believe in dana. That's the at the start of the right view. Lord Buddha says, people believe in dana, whoever who practices the Dhamma. So that's the first one, and the second one is the kamma and the vipaka. So actions have consequences. One has that some idea that you postulate to that idea that the kamma has a vipaka, and there are important teachings actually around this kamma vipaka. I'm not going to go into details today, but it is a very important teaching, as you can see. And the Lord Buddha says that teachings like Dhamma Sutta, like these 10 points, Lord Buddha says you need to remind yourself again and again. Lord Buddha says, yes, you need to contemplate again and again that the kamma is, it is a very central to my existence. Whatever I do, the consequences will follow. Maybe I should mention a little bit of this particular term vipaka, though. Now, in more kind of a traditional Buddhist situation, we have this sense that if you do something, you will receive, you will reap the same thing you did. So it's almost like one-to-one. You did this, and you will get the same thing as a consequence, as a vipaka. But we use the term vipaka, but or the fruit. But if you look at the sutta, sometimes this vipaka, this fruit is, it doesn't always mean that whatever you did, sort of come to you as it is. Because of this special word vipaka, because the vipaka, the term, has this sense that the paka means, literally in Pali, the paka means something cooked, something ripened. So if you say something has ripened, or something has kind of concocted and sort of came to be in a certain way, that means there are so many causes and conditions sort of there to bring out that final result. So that's why the term is chosen as, it is not just a fruit, it's vipaka. So Lord Buddha also talks about, he makes a difference, in a particular sutta. It is called Lonapala Sutta, just for your reference. So I think it's in the Anguttara 3s, the 100th sutta. So in the Lonapala Sutta, Lord Buddha says that there is this belief, that there's this understanding among the religious people. I mean, he doesn't say in the same words, but people believe that whatever you do, you will receive the vipaka in the same way. But then Lord Buddha says, if it is the case, there's no point of living this sort of a life, living a life practicing as a Buddhist, because you have to sort of deal with all the karmas you had done previously anyway, so there's no kind of escape from the samsara. And then Lord Buddha sort of revised that statement, and he says, there is this karma and you reap a vipaka of it. So the vipaka means that it's not just what you did, but the greater context of yours, whether you've been sort of practicing, whether you've been trying to keep your sila, whether you've been practicing meditation, whether you've been trying to let go of things. Things happen sometimes because of lack of mindfulness and stuff, but how it is going to come back, it depends on how who you are, actually how you've been practicing. So because of that, there's this sort of if a person has a good heart with like a wide heart, Lord Buddha says this sort of a bad karma vipaka will be diluted. But if someone has like a narrow-mindedness, little kind of narrow in their sort of in their mind, the vipaka can be greater. So depending on how you've been practicing, where how you've been sort of conducting your life, the vipaka also changes according to that. So because of that, there is this chance that at the beginning, it was a journey. You didn't know that very well about like what's the best thing to do. So the certain the karmas have done, but there's always room to sort of change those consequences. You develop yourself. You sort of you give dana, you meditate, you keep sila. That will change the course of your sort of a future. So instead of a destiny, we actually make our future by doing good here. So it is something very liberating when you look at the views they had back in India in those days. So that's basically the karma Lord Buddha talks about, that is very essential for your the right view. The third one is about the rebirth. Now, if you look at the early Buddhism, the great part of the majority or a big chunk of Buddhism actually was context around this idea of rebirth, the samsara, and all this sort of perpetual life and death sort of a situation. Lord Buddha says basically, we need to find a solution. So the rebirth also something we can't sort of omit, although it's sometimes like people find it difficult to sort of to understand. And as the fourth, the importance of your parents, the mother and the father, the gratitude towards your parents also considered to be part of the right view. I think it's pretty straightforward. The sense of gratitude, it's gratitude is always a good quality we can cultivate. And the fifth one is something like this spontaneous sort of the beings being born spontaneously, like devas, these deities and other sort of pathas like beings. So Lord Buddha says that look, it's not just sort of the things you see materially, but there are these other forms of beings and the rebirths like that. So it is also a possibility. So having a certain idea about it and leaving it open that this is a possibility, also part of the right view. And the sixth one is that there are monastics, there are people, wise people that who knows certain things better than you. So we believe, we sort of value these people, we value their knowledge, we value their experience. Because of that, so that is basically the attitude we're supposed to keep for right view. And because of that, you see there is this intention, there's this inclination towards seeing these people and listen to Dhamma and teach yourself Dhamma, and eventually you practice these things and you experience these things. So those are like the fundamental sort of right view Lord Buddha talks about. And then the Chattarisika Sutta talks about the transcendental right view, which is like Lokottara, which is the Nibbana basically. It's nothing to do with the samsara, but the ending of the samsara. But now this transcendental right view is defined mostly, if you look at the suttas, it is defined as the Four Noble Truths, which is very, you are very familiar with the term, the Chaturarya Satya, the Chattusu Arya Satchesu in Pali. So, when Lord Buddha talks about right view, you see the Four Noble Truths, the topic of Four Noble Truths is coming again and again and again. And now, if I go through kind of quickly, what are these Four Noble Truths? Now, Lord Buddha talks about there is this suffering, there is this stressful situation, we time to time experience as human beings or any beings. So that's part of our human condition. Lord Buddha says that if there is no such a problem, to our lives, we won't be seeking for any liberation or anything. Lord Buddha says that he won't be here. There won't be any a person called Lord Buddha, because there is such a problem. So time to time, a great person does the breakthrough and understand these things, and then he will sort of teach us also how to do the breakthrough, how to understand the Four Noble Truths. And it's a very important principle. It is there, despite whether there is the Buddhism or not. Time to time, this great person will appear, and after the good meditation and all this training, they will understand this principle, which you can see all the time. It is a timeless principle, as Lord Buddha would put. So, in the Satya Samyutta, in the Samyutta Nikaya, there are many ways of explaining these four noble truths. He's emphasizing how important this truth is. So it's a kind of a nice read also, people who read suttas. So what does it say? What the Four Noble Truths about? Like, so it deals with the, it names the problem statement. Basically, this shows how the Buddhism actually came to be. Actually, what's the reason? So in a traditional context, sometimes we were introduced to Buddhism as a as a religion, as a cultural sort of a thing. It is something we were told that it'll shape you up in a good way to be a good human being. But it goes more. It goes far than that. So there is this original Buddhists who were seeking about the condition of human beings, and they wanted answers, and there were other teachers also at that time. And when you look at these fundamental right view I just sort of enumerated, the dana and the importance of the parents and the karma and the rebirth and stuff. So these things, you see, there were these other teachers at that time. They were having these views that Lord Buddha realized actually these are not sort of helpful for people. They are damaging, and they might sort of lead them to more suffering. So some would say there's no karma, there's no kind of a point of believing in karma. If you kill someone and if you give dana, there's no difference between that. There were such teachers. So Lord Buddha basically correcting them, countering that argument and saying, look, this is a wrong view. The right view, you need to be taking this. There is karma. So you see, for most part, in this fundamental right view, that he is basically correcting the views they had prior to the arrival of Lord Buddha. And then this problem of constant sort of rebirth and this samsara problem. Now Lord Buddha notices, yes, there is this jatipi dukkha, jarapi dukkha. In the Dhammaloka Sutta, in his very first sutta, Lord Buddha talks about the reason, the very first teaching he wanted to give, the reason that he actually became Lord Buddha. So the old age, sickness and death, and then he says, you are sort of coming, you are meeting, you are coming to contact with something you don't like, and you are sort of, you have to sort of separate from what you like, and these things are suffering, Lord Buddha says. And then in the second noble truth, he says, okay, there's this wanting, there's this attachment as the central problem of all this dukkha. And then he talks about, okay, once you bit by bit you give up this wanting, this attachment, and then the dukkha will cease to exist. So that is so you see the asesa viraga nirodha. There is this sequence Lord Buddha talks about here. So the tanha or the craving is not overcome in a one night. It's just you practice these things bit by bit. The tanha start to go away. You let go. You let things be. You accept things as they are. So there is this gradually you try to work these things, and in the process you see you have less and less of wantings to control the things around you, and you are becoming like more accepting person and more forgiving person. So it is the asesa viraga nirodha. That means that viraga happens first. Viraga means that it is the fading away of your wanting. Like the color is fading away. We have this we have this delight in the world, and it is there's this color to it. It's more kind of vivid, and sort of when people are kind of into these things, experience it as a very sort of a happening and sort of a colorful way. But eventually, when the understanding comes, the color is start to fade away. It's no longer colorful to you. So then that's the viraga. So bit by bit, that interest is fading away, and eventually it will cease to exist. So that is the nirodha. And so that's the third noble truth. And Lord Buddha talks about the fourth noble truth, which is the noble eightfold path. Now, in the third noble truth, he is giving you a direction. As Buddhists, this should be the direction we should be taking, which is like lessening your tanha, lessening your attachments. That's a direction you should take. And in the fourth noble truth, Lord Buddha gives some more sort of a thorough sort of a description of as a path. It's starting with the right view and the right intentions or the motivations and so on and so forth. So for today's talk, we were sort of focusing on the right view now. So these four noble truths, so they are there. Now, when we hear, even as Sri Lankans, like we use this term, Chaturarya Satya, or, the Chatusu Arya Satyesu, particularly we use this term, the noble truths. Now, in a traditional context, we have the respect to these, these teachings when we hear the term, the noble truths and stuff. But we sometimes lack that confidence whether these things are going to be helpful in a day-to-day basis. It's as if we keep this Dhamma on the pedestal, and we pay respect to them because we have that respect to the Dhamma. But whether they can be useful, here and now, it is sometimes doubtful for some of us. But what I see, particularly in Thai forest tradition, teachers, Ajahn Brahm also, for that matter. So these teachers actually talks about actually how we can use this important principle to deal with our day-to-day problems. Now, what are the implications of these four noble truths, when it comes to like daily situations? So let's say someone is criticizing you, dukkha happens. Criticism, someone actually telling you off, or, giving you a feedback which sort of unwelcome sometimes, you don't like to hear. And then you feel that, so this person opens his mouth and then says something. It's as if some dukkha coming from them to us, the words come and kind of pierce your heart or something. So what is the reaction usually? We sometimes sort of talk back and try to sort of shut down, or sort of try to sort of push back that person, or we try to sort of escape. So thinking that the problem, the dukkha, is coming from the outside. It is something kind of external. That's the sense we have. But Lord Buddha, instead, he's insisting on the second principle of how the dukkha come to be. So he says no. It's some sort of a wanting actually leads to this dukkha. So then when we sort of try to apply this to this situation, we tend to confuse actually, what do you mean? I mean, if the Lord Buddha was around, maybe we need to ask from him rather than being too, you don't have to be too polite. People would ask another question from Lord Buddha, actually, what do you mean by that? So you could have asked actually, or you can ask from yourself sometimes, what could he sort of possibly mean by that? So So here, this person actually saying something, the dukkha comes from him, it seems, but Lord Buddha says, no, the dukkha is due to your wanting. The teachers would say actually what's actually going on in this situation. So you see, there are these two events happening at the same time. There's this first event is that the person actually talks to you, then is talking to you, and then okay, that's the first event. And there's another event happens, immediately after that, which is that you don't want that person to to talk like that to you. You want that thing to be otherwise. Either you want to be, you expect the world to be in a certain way, or you don't want the world to be in a certain way. So either it is wanting or not wanting. So either way it is wanting. It's the two coins of the same thing, which is tanha. So we also have our rules, we have our standards, and we have our qualities. So we try to abide by these qualities, like book of rules or something. But when we see other people are not abiding by these things, we feel like upset, and we start complaining in our minds. Why can't he why can't she act, do things like this? Why can't they be fair like me? Something like that. But this is something like a tough ask from the world. Now, Lord Buddha says that the external world, they are like, he summarizes the external conditions into like 8 things, 8 worldly dhammas. So what you should, what you get basically, these 8 worldly dhammas mostly, which is, which are that now, if I name them, the gain and the loss, and the praise and the blame, and the fame and the defame, or the notoriety, or the pleasure and the pain. These 8 worldly dhammas, the labha, alabha, ninda, pasansa, sapa, dukkha, and yasa, ayasa. Those are the closer to Pali terms. So what we usually would like to have, this, the first, the good side of all these things. You can see there are like a polarity there. There is this, the pleasure, and there is this, the gain, and there is this fame, and there is this, the praise, which we those 4 we would like to have, but the other 4 we don't want to have. We try our best to sort of push them away. But Lord Buddha says that no, that is not the case. You are not going to get that. It is part of the 8 worldly dhammas. That's why Lord Buddha says dukkha is there. It is a principle. It is the first noble truth. So when we hear this term, the noble truth, sometimes it's not heavy enough. But in school, in college, we learn, in more kind of a physics or some sort of a scientific context, we might hear something like, okay, Newton's, the Newton's laws, or the second law of thermodynamics, or sounds very fancy and very intimidating. But those sort of terms actually immediately demands our respect. But when we hear the term the 4 noble truths, it's more like okay, it's noble. Because it's the old use. Sometimes it's not heavy enough. It's not like we don't feel the weight of importance of these principles. Lord Buddha says that the Buddhism actually, they are like 4 pillars of Buddhism. Whatever he says, would fit into either of these 4 truths. So the noble truths are something we need to take very seriously. So back to our example. So someone is criticizing and I said there are like two events happening. There is this, criticizing part, and there is this wish that this thing could be otherwise. Because of this wanting, because of this wish, actually, that gives rise to that dukkha, that pain. So that is the problem. That's what the Lord Buddha was pointing out all along. But this process is happening very quickly. We don't notice it. So we tend to point fingers at, so and so, the certain thing actually gives me suffering. But Lord Buddha says, it is not something or somebody gives you suffering. It is just your wanting actually gives rise to suffering. So I would like to give a little an anecdote to demonstrate the same thing, which like one of my favorite Ajahn Chah stories. So this happened to Ajahn Sumedho. I'm sure you've heard of him. So back in the days when he was a junior monk, I guess he was a samanera, like a novice monk at that time. So this is in 60s. So in Thailand, he's from US, and now it is into the hot season in Thailand. So in Thailand, it can get really hot in the hot season, which is in April, around April. So his kuti was also like, the roof was out of tin, sort of a roofing material. So it got really hot at that time. So here he was, in the hot season, as a foreigner, it's double, triple kind of a difficulty. He's not a sort of a local sort of a person. So had to go through a lot of difficulties, and plus that day there's this this custom that this is the Uposatha day, which monks come together and chant Patimokkha. So one pra they call it in Thai. So one pra day, and they need to come out and sweep around the monastery ground, not just around your kuti, but entire monastery. And he wasn't feeling like sweeping at all, and when he was saying this story, I remember actually how we felt as junior monks sometimes, sort of doing this sort of a thing. When you are having a hard time, having a bad day sometimes, but you have to do these chores and stuff. It is real difficult. So what he was saying basically, I didn't ordain to sweep around in the monastery. I ordained to meditate. The mind is complaining and grumbling about these things. So that is dukkha actually. The pure dukkha actually coming out, which all monastics and all monastics can relate to. And then at that time, Ajahn Chah happened to pass by that kuti, and he saw this Western monk. I think at that time he was the only Western monk. It's this tall Western monk, sort of holding onto his broom, but little kind of feeling grumpy. And when you look at his face, he could see he was upset. And the belief is that he could read his mind as well. So whether he read his mind or not, he could see actually he's not happy. So basically he asked, Sumedho, is the monastery suffering? So that was the question he asked. Is the monastery suffering? The original phrasing, because later on while I was in Thailand, I met Ajahn Sumedho, and I asked this question, asked him to sort of retell the story for us, and he said he asked from Ajahn Chah. Ajahn Chah said that Vapapong tuk mai, tuk means the dukkha, the Vapapong is the monastery. So basically Ajahn Chah asked, is Vapapong suffering? So that was the very kind of plain, but sort of a very very sharp question. So he was holding on to his broom, And he asked that question, and he sort of smiled and he left, according to the story, the Ajahn Chah. But he was sort of holding onto his broom and thinking, so suddenly if you realize actually now, when we are having such a hard time, we feel like, this monastery gives me suffering, or a person gives me suffering, or this weather, this climate, gives me suffering. Sometimes, last night I thought like that a little. So any condition, actually, you feel like, you can't agree with, you immediately put the blame on, this gives me suffering. But if you sort of cross-question your thinking, is it true? I mean, can weather gives you suffering? Can a place give you suffering? Where's the suffering is? Can you point out actually where the suffering is in the monastery? Is it in the kuti, or it is at the Dhamma hall, or where's the suffering is? But you won't be able to point out, right? But when something happens, it feels like, I can't live here, I want to go. I want to move out. The country is not good enough, I feel like leaving. A few years ago, a lot of Sri Lankans think like that. So, understandably. So things like that. So, but if you question your thinking, you have your teachers inside. You are your teacher, because you've been listening to these great teachers, teachers like Ajahn Brahm. So, there are a lot of wisdom you could sort of learn from these teachings. So then you question this thinking, and then you understand that, it's not the external condition actually gives me suffering. It's my thinking. This thing, you wish this thing to be otherwise. It's always your mind. Now, we are talking about the mental suffering here. There are these other physical things also, playing a part here. But now imagine the same thing. We are not denying that, it's not there. Now, the same thing happened to Lord Buddha. He goes on Pindapata and someone criticizes him. And there is a certain story that he quietly listened to this Brahmin who were accusing him. And then basically later on he cross-questioned him actually what he would do in such a situation that but the point being that imagine now the same thing happening to Lord Buddha. Now there is this event A happening, that someone actually criticizing you, but the event B, Lord Buddha doesn't have that wish, this thing to be otherwise. There is no kind of a wish that may this thing, may they stop, talk like that or anything. If you don't have that wish, what will happen is that basically you are at peace with this situation. Now imagine actually if you could have such a sort of ability, sort of be at peace with what you are experiencing right now. You don't have any issues with it. You are at peace. You are letting things be. What do you expect if you have eyes and ears? Time to time, you see bad things. You will listen to. Sometimes you see good things and bad things, and you will you will hear good things and bad things. You will hear praise and blame. It's part of the human experience. So that is the First Noble Truth. If we are going to argue with that First Noble Truth, then we are going to be in trouble. So being a Sotapanna means that you are wholeheartedly accepting this truth, this fact that time to time as human beings, we experience this thing. So if you are not arguing with the reality, so then you are not making any contrast with what you're experiencing. You are experiencing a certain thing, but you are thinking in a more in a contrast way. You want that to be otherwise. The more contrast you have, the more you want that to be otherwise, the more contrast you have, the more dukkha you have. But if you can match, you experience a certain thing, and if you can match that with your expectation, if you can lessen your expectation, hence the term, the lessening your expectation, then you see, you are at ease with this fluctuation of conditions. So that is, in essence of this, the practice, the practical side of the Four Noble Truths. So as a Buddhist, we try to practice this letting go, and eventually you see these things actually. Then you meditate, and there are other practices also involved in this process. It will help to let go. So let me sort of get back to our sort of original the sutta now. So we were talking about, if you support your right view with these 5 conditions, it will be helpful for your nibbana. So what are the 5 conditions once again? So Lord Buddha says it's the sila first, the virtue, the precepts. So when you are practicing your precepts, you let go what you want, you practice what the Buddha want. So basically you give up your ways of doing things. You need to sacrifice certain things. So in the process, you see a lot of tanha, this craving and wantings also you need to give up. So it's a gradual thing. You are not sort of succeeding it at one go with the sila, but it's a natural thing. You take up these precepts and try your best. The things sort of happen. A precept might break, but you determine it once again. So bit by bit you wear off those those wanting and those cravings and stuff. So if you support the right view with the sila, it will lead to nibbana, Lord Buddha says. And then the second one is the sutta, which is you're listening to Dhamma, you're listening to Kalyana Mittas. So you get this constant conditioning of the Dhamma. So Ajahn Chah says that be your voice recorder, be your recorder. You don't have to sort of write down and all these things. You sort of pay attention to these things, and when the right time comes, I'm sure you have this experience that the right advice will come to you. That is the beauty of listening to Dhamma. So, hanging around with the Kalyana Mittas, listening to Dhamma, and there are so many Dhamma talks these days, over internet. So we listen to this Dhamma. So we basically allow the Kalyana Mittas to condition ourselves. So we open up our heart. We know these things are, a certain teacher is reliable enough. So we open up our heart and take in these things. And, when you're listening also, you sort of do a little bit of a checking with what you already learned, you do a little bit of a comparison, and then it'll go to you the right, it'll fit to the right place, on your jigsaw puzzle, so to speak. So listening is very important. So, and then Lord Buddha says that as a third one is a discussion. So time to time you have the questions. And even for forest dwellers, Lord Buddha says it is highly recommended that you time to time you go back to your teachers, ask questions, and get these clarifications about your sort of doubts and stuff. So asking questions is very important. Now, there's another interesting thing I've heard when Ajahn Chah is saying that sometimes when we have a question, it is something like you are on the verge of understanding something. You are you are kind of maturing in your meditation, in your practice. Certain things, the bigger picture you start to see, and a certain thing on the verge of understanding. So it doesn't occur to you like that, but then a question comes, because the question also doesn't come like totally randomly. It'll like it's subconsciously, these things sort of your understanding also getting more kind of a wider. There's this sudden urge, okay, how about this, that sense of asking a question also part of your learning. So Ajahn Chah says, when you are asking a question, it's most probably you want, you are like on the verge of understanding a little bit more about Dhamma. So then, so that was the third one, and the fourth one, Lord Buddha says, then we are coming to the meditation, basically, fourth and the fifth, which is basically the samatha and the vipassana. So understandably, all this right view needs to be supported by the meditation as well. Otherwise, it won't, mature into a deeper sort of understanding. So this is, like the samatha and the vipassana, you are familiar with these terms, you know what this means. And if I summarize a little bit, now there is this another sutta which deals with this samatha and the vipassana, which I thought maybe I would read, which is like an interesting sutta. So this is again in the Anguttara, the Book of Tools, the 31st sutta. So it goes like this: these two things play a part in realization. These two things play a part in realization. What two? The samatha and the vipassana. So I'm changing the translation a little. The serenity and discernment. What is the benefit of developing samatha? The mind is developed. What is the benefit of developing the mind? The greed is given up. The greed is given up because of the samatha. And what is the benefit of developing discernment, which is the vipassana? Wisdom is developed. Now the first it was the mind is developed. And here with the vipassana, it is the wisdom is developed. What is the benefit of developing wisdom? Ignorance is given up. So as you can see, these two, the samatha vipassana, basically deals with these two main problems we are trying to deal with, which is the avijja, the tanha and the avijja, the wanting, the attachment, and the ignorance, the delusion. And then the sutta says, the mind contaminated by greed is not free, and the wisdom contaminated by ignorance does not grow. In this way, freedom of heart comes from fading away of greed, while freedom by wisdom comes from the fading away of ignorance. So if I try to simplify this statement, so samatha deals with, the samatha develops the mind. The developed mind can, give up the tanha. That's the role of the samatha. And once you develop the samatha, that will lead to the ceto vimutti. The ceto, the chitta, the mind is liberated from the tanha. That is the ceto vimutti. Sometimes you hear the metta ceto vimutti, the karuna, mudita, upekka ceto vimuttis. That is an indication that there is no tanha at that time. But it is sort of subsided. It doesn't mean that it is totally eradicated yet, but it's gone for a while. And there's this role of vipassana. Now, when we develop the vipassana, what is the role of the vipassana? It develops the wisdom, the panya. Because of the panya, the avidya will go away. Because of the avidya is going away, the panya vimutti will happen. You are liberated by wisdom. So, when Lord Buddha says about nibbana, it's the twofold liberation from tanha, liberation from avidya. So samatha and the vipassana has these unique roles to deal with these two sides. So as you can imagine, it's not like a one sort of a meditation or something. Now you see, if we sort of talk about a little bit of this samatha vipassana, sort of the today's sort of notions around these two meditations. Now you see at the when you look at the suttas in the early Buddhism, you see these things actually go hand in hand. But later on, particularly in the commentary tradition, later on you start to see for the first time. Now, earlier it was like samatha vipassana is the two sides of the same meditation. But later on, you start to see for the first time there are these two meditations standing alone. One is the samatha meditation and one is the vipassana meditation, which is for the first time you see in the history. So it's quite a development, if you ask me. So so there, needless to say, actually, people have their sort of a different opinions and takes about how much sort of a meditation we should be doing in terms of the the samatha and the vipassana. But if you look at the suttas, if you pay attention to the early Buddhism, it is there's no doubt actually that you need to deal with the both, because according to the sutta, the solution of the solution we are seeking, actually it's two pronged. There's like a pincer movement, like two armies sort of moving towards the enemy. It's not this whole battle is not kind of a sort of a fight with one army. It's like a two side sort of two flanks involved. So it's so basically, if you sort of support your right view with the samatha and the vipassana, actually, then according to sutta, the Lord Buddha says that this will leads to the ceto vimutti and the panya vimutti. So freedom from the craving, freedom from avidya, the delusion, the ignorance. So I would like to stop there for tonight. So I hope my talk will be some help for your practice. So thank you once again for inviting me to give a talk. So thank you for being here. I wish you have a great meditation and good progress in your path. May you be happy and well. May you realize Nibbana soon. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. So, if we have any questions, now it's the time to ask. So, I'll try my best to answer to those questions. Yes.
And I feel
Sure. Okay. Right. Right. So when you see this teaching of the mana, this the self-view and this conceit, and this teaching actually based on this comparison between, I'm worse, or I'm equal with someone, or I'm better than someone. So that involves this measuring, against something. The mana literally means that you are measuring, right? So the manima, the minum, in Sinhala also. So so now we have this wanting and wanting things, the attachments and stuff like that at the background. The wrong view, basically. With that at the background, you see a certain thing, and you don't have that confidence, that this is good enough, or I don't have to sort of, be otherwise. I'm good as I am right now, because of this sort of a constant sort of a wanting and all these things. Actually, so it kind of disorients us all the time. So we see something, maybe I want that, or maybe it's a kind of a challenge to me, sort of. So you tend to to compare, and you compare what they have with you, and okay, this is I don't have that much, so maybe I want that, and all this wanting business actually comes with that part of that comparison. So it kind of it has this sort of a feedback sort of a relationship, I think. So the mana, the self-view, partially, it's fueled by the tanha, and on the other hand, we don't see, how the mind actually works. There is this darkness in our mind, not like sort of a darkness, but you can't see clearly sometimes. Like now, in traditional contexts, we were told, okay, these things are akusala, and these things are kusala. So basically, if a certain situation comes up, we try to sort of run through those lists and sort of have some idea, okay, this may be a akusala, or this may be a kusala. Certain situations are pretty sort of black and white, but there are like so many gray area sort of things. Sometimes we wonder whether we are doing, whether we are thinking it correctly, or whether I'm motivated rightly or not. So that is when, because we can't see actually, what the real chetana is sometimes, and what the motivations are, which is avijja. There's this blurriness. So avijja and the tanha at the background, these comparisons, this mana, the view of self, and all this actually comes to be. There is this simile also. Lobodha talks about, there's this the field, the tanha, a field which is like some kind of a paddy field or something, which we grow rice or some stuff. So tanha is kamma is the field, avijja as the seed, and the tanha is as the moisture. So these things actually come together, and the samsara goes on. So I think, have I answered to your questions? Right. Right. Generally, that comparison, let's say, like about you, whether you are, better than someone, lesser than someone, or equal. That is the mana. That's the definition of the mana, or this conceit. Right. Right. Okay. Right. The materialistic. Right. So now when we look at the third noble truth, the direction we should be taking is the lessening of tanha, as I mentioned, according to the suttas and all. Now, another practice is that, which is very important, is the contentment, right? Like, there are so much sort of I think the teachers talk about the importance of the contentment. Now, the human mind has this sort of a wanting and this craving, this unlimited sort of the wanting things. But over the time, actually, we need to contemplate that, these things actually lead to more and more business, more kind of a trouble. Like one teacher would put, it is convenient, but it is troublesome. So many things. And it comes to a point, actually, an individual can't sort of deal that much of a complexity. There are so many things to be done. In your work situation, or in a family situation also, because there are so many things. Like, people start to do their DIY work, for an instance, and there are so many things you could do, start to sort of do on your own. But it's never, there's so many things you could do, and so many tools and so many things you can buy, and it's kind of never ending. But you do sometimes, you get into this sort of a thing, you sort of that you need to realize that there is a limitation there. There is limited time and limited energy, and so then because the phase you are going through with this asada, the plus side of things. There is, Lord Buddha doesn't say that it is all kind of a doom and gloom, right? So Lord Buddha says there is a pleasure also there, but it comes with a price. That's what Lord Buddha says. So you go through this natural circle of, seeing the plus side of things, and eventually you start to see, look, there's a great price to pay, and then the letting go happens by itself. So you can't force you to sort of let go certain things. You can train yourself, but at the beginning it's not that sort of natural to you, maybe. But if you start to see the drawback of things, how, because it is not something, some boring Buddhists actually making up. You can see actually how the life is getting more and more complex, and the more stress, and even for young people, how debilitating for them, because there are so many career opportunities, there are so many things to learn, and so much knowledge available, and the AI also, okay, now it's there now, so much stuff to deal with. So it feels like choking sometimes. There's so much information. How can I pause? What to do? Like, in single we say, like, we try to sort of get so many oranges, sort of do, to you, like hugging so many oranges, getting, so, they will fall because you can't, keep all the oranges, in you. So, so if you pay attention to that, the nibbida, this, the drawback of things actually leads to nibbida. That helps because it's so that is the way forward. And on the other hand, if you see some people actually see the immediate result of being content. So that can be cultivated too. We are not trying to be more kind of we try to be good people, but the being good is not enough sometimes to motivate ourselves to be good, right? You can call person a good person because they are working towards their tanha, and they understand how their mind works. They try to be very kind and forgiving. So in that process, we can say, oh, he's a good person, but he or she is motivated because they know actually the suffering is there. This is how the world works. So if I could practice in a way that simplifying these things, lessening the tanha, that is the main drive. That's what even the Bodhisattva actually sort of pushed, towards this path of liberation. So finding out, clarifying, how these things, started, in the Buddhism and stuff, because in more kind of traditional context, we were given, I was saying the same in this simile the other day, that it's as if like for our, in a traditional context, our parents actually decided our religion, and or even like the, sometimes the society actually, give a little bit of peer pressure to, being a Buddhist is a good thing, you do this, you do that, and there are so many things. But it's as if now taking some sort of a herbal medicine, some sort of Ayurvedic medicine or something, we know actually that it's good. You tend to think like they are kind of a good, it's good, more kind of holistic and all these sort of good things about we hear. And so we were told to see this doctor. Okay, son, you go and see this doctor, because he's a good doctor. So you go and sort of see him and tell that, look, I was told, my parents told me that you're such a good doctor, so I came to see you. I don't have that kind of an illness per se, but since my actually mother, parents sort of was insisting, so I'm here. So can you write some sort of prescription so I can sort of try? So that is more like kind of the drive we have sometimes, like in this simile, the doctor being the Lord Buddha. So because it is a good thing to do, but at the beginning, it was about, there's this dukkha, and we have to do something about it. So these questions were asked very frankly, and they were like declaring in front of Lord Buddha, oh, may Lord Buddha consider that I am also a disciple, who took the refuge of the Buddha, Dhamma and the Sangha. So when they take that refuge, it means that actually they knew actually there is a need for refuge. So therefore I'm going refuge for these things. But these days sometimes we don't feel like we need a refuge. There are certain problems and stuff, but do I really have need to have a refuge? But we don't see it in that way. But when we take 5 precepts and stuff, we see, you're taking the refuge, and you wonder actually what's the point of, you wouldn't, but the original idea was that there is this, it's like the patient knew actually they have a sickness to begin with, so then they actively, proactively, by themselves they reach to Lord Buddha and ask for medicine, so to speak. So in order to deal with these things, in line with Buddhism, I think we need to have a clear idea of this problem statement actually. Then these things start to sort of fall into place and works properly. and the Four Noble Truths suddenly make sense. You are not, solving these things externally, but start with internally. And since I came back to the Four Noble Truths, let me say this story also, like an anecdote. I think it's a parable. So there was a king, in a certain kingdom, that he would go around to see how his subjects are doing. And in the process, he gets, his feet get dirty, and so his feet is hurting also. So he comes back and tell to his ministers that, I have this problem. I've been visiting the territory, and I've been experiencing this. What are your suggestions? So one minister said that, okay, how about we cover the entire sort of the kingdom with cowhide or something, so the His Majesty would not sort of get his his feet dirty. Okay, that was one suggestion. Okay, there was another one actually. He said that, okay, let's do a sort of, you can unroll a carpet like you do for Buddhist monks, the pavada, so you can sort of walk on that mat, and someone can unroll it and roll it back and sort of do the same, repeat the process. And there is a third minister always which is wiser, and he says, okay, here you go, sir, sire, a pair of shoes, please wear these. So that's a kind of a good solution, isn't it? Right? Instead of for your irritation, because of you irritate, you feel irritated because of your dukkha. If you were to solve this problem externally, shutting up, all the the criticizing, all the haters, and sort of that'll be like an endless problem, right? Like you never be able to do that. But instead of that, we try to solve the problem from inside, which is you give up that hope that may I not sort of come in contact with the blame or sort of a criticism. You give up that hope, because that's the first noble truth. So the more you practice that, the more you get close to the noble truth. So you are sort of in line with the reality. So I think I already yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhante, for that explanation about the comparison.
Yes.
I think you may recall that Buddha said that not to compare two people, because he said only me or someone like me could do that. I think the sutta is Migasala Sutta, and you may recall that the stories that this lady went, because his father, I remember the names, they were the keepers of the King Pasenadi's harem.
Oh, okay.
And when they passed away, Buddha declared that one was a non-returner and the other one was once returner.
Okay.
So the daughter of the father was unhappy that one was given the lower status.
Okay.
So this is in Anguttara Book 6, if I remember right, number 44.
Migasala? Is it the Migasala story? Yeah,
Migasala. No. It appears in two places, Anguttara Book 10 as well. 6 is because it cuts two ways. You mentioned about that Lonapalla Sutta, that in this Sutta, Buddha explains how some people's karma will not be as strong as others.
Yes.
And that the answer to this question, that comparison,
yes.
Buddha said, don't compare people,
right.
only me or someone like me.
Right.
That what he meant was not even Arahants,
right.
but it's another Buddha who can compare
right.
to. So he said, who is this foolish auntie
Right.
That's the one rare case that Buddha used those words.
Yeah.
And I think the reason is that because what is there to compare? It's five ever-changing aggregates. Because if they are static, then you can compare.
Sure.
Because what was there a minute ago,
Yeah.
two have changed. So in Buddhism, the answer is that we are not capable of comparison.
Sure, yeah.
And also in the, I'm trying to remember the sutta, Bala Sutta in the Anguttara Book 9,
Okay.
Buddha gave 4 powers. And the fourth power was Sanghahi Bala, that is inclusiveness. I think Panya Bala, Virya Bala, Anavajja Bala, and Sanghahi Bala. Those are the 4 powers. In Bala Sutta, Anguttara Book 9, Book 5, Sutta 5. And Buddha said there that he broke that Sanghahi Bala into again 4. Dana, Peyavajjang, Attacharya, and the Samanatata. Samanatata means the equality.
Yeah.
And then he said you can compare only a Sotapanna with a Sotapanna, once returner with a once returner, non-returner with a non-returner, and that's all. So I've just thought I will add that Bhante with your permission.
Sure.
So because that you gave a very detailed explanation,
Right.
and this is the simple version.
Right. Thank you. Are there any questions? Okay. Okay. A few questions. Okay.
This is one of question of ignorance, not anything else.
Okay.
Now, comparing what is happening in Palestine, where
Okay.
Muslim gods are not listening, the Catholic God is not listening, and Jewish God is not listening.
Oh.
And there's genocide and there's murder.
Right.
How does Buddhism explain what is happening to the Jews and what is happening to the Palestinians? It won't take more than 3 minutes, please.
All right. Already kind of a strings attached. So okay. Yeah, I mean that's something like Ajahn Brahm caliber sort of a question. What's happening? I mean, it seems like the samsara is happening, and on top of my head, it reminds me this story of, in Ajahn Brahm's book, this opening the door of your heart. This British Prime Minister was asked by a journalist, actually, what do you think about what's happening in Palestine back in, I think, when the 6 Day War was happening, and the Prime Minister said, "Oh, there's no problem in Middle East." I think you know this story, but let me say it again. So, and then the journalist asked, "What do you mean? I mean, there are people killing each other, all these sort of gunfights and stuff. What do you mean?" Well, for something to be a problem, I mean, it should have a solution, but what's happening in Middle East doesn't have a solution. Therefore, it's not a problem. I know it's a little kind of a harsh sort of a line of thinking, but when you think about the samsara, sometimes there are things, actually there's no solution rather than escaping it. Now, we have this, okay, I think the 3 minutes already gone, so maybe if you want more details, you have to sort of click on the more, but may I go on? And okay, all right. So this reminds me. Now there are these. I mean, not like something intense like what's happening in in that part of the world, but there are these problems we also get time to time. There's no easy answers to these things, and we have as human beings, we have this knowledge and culture and sort of expectations and stuff, telling us that, oh, you should be solving this problem like this, you should be compassionate and you should be doing this and that. But these things are approximations of the truth. Sometimes the truth is very complex, and these things might not apply straight away. You can apply it, but it's not clear actually how you should apply this thing, because there's so many things actually coming together. It's so complex, and so it's difficult. We can propose something, but whether we can implement it is a different thing. So I think this is very sort of a, like escapism sort of an answer, because you don't see sometimes, there's no hope of sort of solving this problem in samsara. That's why Lord Buddha says actually, maybe the best thing is to sort of escape this samsara. Dealing with it is a difficult thing, but I would like to say this as well, that not as intense as that, but certain situations you sort of you need to approach in a totally in a different way sometimes. Now I would like to bring this story of this historical event they say happened when Alexander the Great was invading towards the Middle East and the further. So I think he was in the Mediterranean area at that time, and a particular island or somewhere there was some sort of temple dedicated to a certain deity or something, and it is the Gordian, basically. I'm talking about this the story of the Gordian knot. Some of you may heard about it. So he went. So he was there in that area. He was told that in that temple there is this chariot, a horse chariot, bound to a tree or a post or something, tightly, with a lot of knots and stuff. So if a person can undo the knots and free the chariot, he or she will be the conqueror of the worlds, the conqueror of the world. So that was the legend, the going, about this place, and he went to that place, and he see the chariot, tied with a lot of sort of knots, and basically instead of untying these things, he drew out his sword and basically cut it in one shot and freed the chariot, something like that. So of course, it is not according to the convention, the expectation, the people around, he had, but certain solutions have that kind of a, you can't sort of pussyfoot around these things, and sometimes you sort of you take a totally different sort of approach and sort of deal with it. So it may be something like that, even some unconventional thing, because I think people already tried a lot of conventional things. So that's the best I can say about these things. Yeah. Any other? Okay, I think there's other gentleman also. Yeah. Yes.
Just now you mentioned about the 8 winds. 8 winds?
8 what?
The 8 winds. It's the worldly Dhammas.
Oh, okay. 8 worldly Dhammas, okay.
You mentioned about the 8 winds, no?
8 winds, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
the 8 winds. The Buddha told us not not to be swayed by the 8 winds, the
Right.
praise and blame, gain and loss, isn't it?
Correct.
So these 8 winds, they are equanimity, isn't it?
You say it again.
The 8 winds do not be swayed by praise
Sure.
they are ask us to practice equanimity, isn't it?
Equanimity, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yeah, it is.
Yeah. And also, I tell you how, the thing, we can link that, the equanimity, to the highest jhana, is equanimity, 7 factors of enlightenment to highest equanimity, the 7 factors of enlightenment, that's bojjhanga. You know.
Right.
So that's a healing thing, isn't it? Is it?
What's the question?
It's a healing.
Yeah, it is. It is.
It's a
of
healing
course,
thing,
yeah.
you know.
It is a healing, yes.
Yeah, so we have to, like it says, like when the Buddha was sick, you know, Chunda recited the bojjhangas and the Buddha was healed.
Right.
And when some of the monks were sick, the Buddha recited that and he healed them, I think. So.
Right.
So there's power in these things, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Then you can link that to the right view too. The whole thing is healing, you know.
Yes, yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's about healing. You know, you're solving your problem. Yeah, and there's more sort of a.
It needs to.
Yeah.
Needs also to be practiced in that practice. We have to practice that, you know.
Yes.
Practice the equanimity too. Whenever you have a problem, this thing, how does it heal us? So we have to, you know, when there's a problem, our mind is harping on all the fear comes, you know. If you can practice equanimity, and then we become calm, and it's a healing thing, you know.
Right. Correct.
That's how I just trying to say, you know.
Sure. Thank you.
There's all these links in it, links.
Sure, it is. You know, they are linked. Yes, yes. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. So, you wanted to ask a question? No. Yeah.
It's actually not really Buddhism.
I'm sorry?
It's not really about Buddhism.
Okay.
But my thing is like, I mean, Buddhism is a way of life, right?
Okay.
So, if we can actually somehow show this way of life to the world leaders at a UN level, maybe, I think it would probably make a big change to the world. Maybe you could one day give a speech in the UN.
Oh yeah, someone can definitely do that. Yes, for sure. But I think, you know, by now actually they have done, you know, there are certain, you know, efforts, right? By the yeah, I know. I don't want to sort of you know, say it is hopeless, you know, like giving, you know, spreading the Buddha's message to the UN, and yeah, I mean, we should try. But you know, we tend to sort of mind our own business and sort of, you know, go to our kuti and shut the door and sort of be quiet, and so that's a tendency, I'm afraid. But what you see, like, say, like what happened in Sri Lanka and subsequently what happened in Bodh Gaya, you know, Anuggahita Dhammapala, people like them. I mean, people who you know, who knew him say that, you know, he was like a tough person. You know, it's not easy to sort of sometimes sort of live with him. Because he demands you to, you know, like practice, and, you know, like whatever he knew actually the best thing, you know, he would demand you to do, and he pushed for certain things, and no one else wanted to sort of do that sort of a thing. I'm sure, you know, he also paid the price of that sort of activism. But you know, if someone can do it, you know, there are certain people among us actually can do it, can take that toll, and, you know, sacrifice themselves and do it. So we can, yeah, of course, you know, take the benefit of it. Like what happened to Bodh Gaya, and, you know, now the Buddhists can go over and, you know, pay respects to these things. Actually, if it never had done, it'll be a different story by now. So even for these sort of things, you know, with people with a lot of passion and, you know, believing that we can change, you know, we need those people also. Maybe we are not them, but we see, okay, we might not want to take that path, but we definitely benefited from these people. So I don't sort of deny what you just said, but, you know, it's sometimes, you know, whether, you know, we can do it, you know, in an individual basis, but definitely, you know, this is something we can try. Because of that hopeless sort of trying actually sometimes led to good results, like, you know, despite all this things happen, in the context of colonialism and all these things. But he was persistent, and he made waves, and it wasn't, the total agenda wasn't achieved, but to a certain extent. So it's a mixed thing. I mean, I remember I asked from Ajahn Brahm about the same thing, like in terms of Anuggahita Dhammapala. So he did a lot of meritorious things, but he got upset and angry, and he even declared that he won't be born again in Sri Lanka because he was so disappointed about Sri Lankans. He was so into sort of a revved up and sort of a very kind of a pushing towards these things. So what could be his sort of what could be his karma? That was my question at that time when I was a junior monk. He said, yeah, like it's a mixed thing. He did a great thing. Definitely these great things he did. There will be a good karma, but getting angry and upset and all these things also, that's also there. It's part of, it's not like black or white sometimes. In most cases, it's kind of a mix. So. But we tend to see, okay, there are white characters, there are black characters, kind of a framework sometimes. The truth is, the reality is more than that, more complex than that. So we need to cut some slack for these people also. Not pointing, he's been very angry and kind of very critical, so maybe he was kind of born in a sort of bad kind of place. Someone would say that we'd be very sort of quick to sort of judge that person, but maybe it's not the case. So, yes.
To that question, Bhante.
Yes.
I think there is that famous saying, rather than complaining about the darkness, light a candle.
Yeah, yes.
So
yes.
at the moment there is, I think we all know Bhikkhu Bodhi. I might take this opportunity. Bhikkhu Bodhi is heading the Global Buddhist Relief.
Yes.
And they are doing an enormous amount of work even in the Middle East to help.
Right.
And if I remember right, 66 projects at the moment in 22 countries.
Okay, great.
And so we all can help.
Yeah.
And just go to the Global Buddhist Relief website, and that will give us an opportunity to help with these problems. And that is the commercial.
Okay.
May I also add that what Nihal asked and what this gentleman also asked, there is a great sutta called Sedaka Sutta in the Sangyukta, Satipatthana Sangyukta. Buddha said how to help oneself and how to help others. He said, by helping oneself, you help others. By helping others, you help oneself.
Yeah.
And then the first one, he said, practice the 4 Satipatthanas.
Right.
Help oneself by practicing Satipatthanas, then we help others.
Right.
And then to help others, he gave 4 things.
Right.
Kantiya, Avihimsa, Metta Sahagata Chetana, Cheta, and Anuggahita. Okay. Anuggahita is the empathy or the sympathy.
Yeah.
So if you practice those 4, rather than complaining, then we are lighting a candle. Yeah. And Buddha's that sutta, if anyone wants to read, it's in Samyukta 47, number 19.
Thank you. Okay, maybe I think everyone feels like going home, so let's kind of conclude our session. Thank you for listening. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Okay. Okay.